Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, good morning. This is Stan coming to you from Gainesville, and welcome to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen coming to you from tropical St. Bart's, and I am happy to be with you for another interesting edition of Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And sister.
You better believe it. Hey, Ellen, it's great to have you back with us today.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So welcome, everyone, to episode 279, a very special episode of Light Talk. When we started this crazy podcast 279 weeks ago, Stan, Steve, and I wanted to model the form of the show similar to what Tom and Ray Magliazzi did on Car Talk. That is, have live callers call into the show and ask questions directly to us. Well, that technology totally escaped these three lighting designers. So we asked our listeners to send us questions that we read on the show, and we did our best to answer them. Well, 5.5 years later, we decided to go on an expensive retreat to St. Bart's to discuss how we're going to grow the show. Although we were pretty big already with over 300,000 downloads in 53 countries, et cetera, we came up with this idea to welcome our listeners to our taping to ask us questions, cold questions, and see if they can indeed stump the chumps, which is really not too difficult, to tell you the truth. We basically did that on our live audience LDI shows without suffering too much embarrassment. So we decided to invite several of our longtime listeners to today's taping to see if this format is even worth pursuing. We will find out today. So we have several listeners locked in a Zoom room, and we will answer their questions one at a time. Everyone can hear the show, but they cannot help with the answers. We will only be talking to the person asking the question. So once we exhaust all comedic and informational content, we will move to the next listener question. Remember, the Lumen brothers and sister have not seen or heard any of these questions. So with that explanation, and after 5.5 years, I finally get to say hello and welcome to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Drew from Salt Lake City, Utah. My question has to do with networking, not so much DMX networking, but employer networking, so much as how do you use networking to make new connections with venues and companies, and also how do you keep current connections strong? And furthermore, how do you use those strategies to be a consistent traveling lighting designer where you consistently get opportunities and gigs throughout the year?
Well, I'll start. Networking is extremely important because we're in a people business, and the fact of the matter is that directors hire us. So it's very important that we network with directors, and we meet a lot of directors, and we impress directors so that they want to hire us again. We've talked about this on the show before, about different strategies we use, because there's a balance. You don't want to be one of those people who basically are pushing yourself into the front of the line. Most people don't like that. You're going to prove your worth by being I can do that, or I can help you do that. Let me help you solve that problem. That type of person. But other strategies are make sure you're not a wallflower. If after the rehearsal, some people say, hey, let's go out for some drinks, maybe you should just go, even for only 5 minutes. It doesn't mean you have to drink, but you can certainly go there and just be present and listen. Listen is probably the most important thing.
Well, I have a couple of ideas. One is, I know in New York City that a lot of the younger designers keep an eye on who's coming into town. And they reach out to them and they say, hey, can I come by and sit in on a rehearsal? And they might go, sit with them for a while. And that also might lead to drinks. And to stay on top of all different kinds of events that people are doing, whether it be regional or national. Obviously, Drew knows that LDI is a great place to network. He comes every year, and we're happy for that. So any networking you want to do at LDI, anybody you want to meet that you don't know, I'll be happy to introduce you. And I think social media is really, really important in this day and age. Sometimes I see even pretty established designers saying, hey, who's got a tour going out in November, December? I'm free. Or, somebody might say, hey, I'm looking for a good designer to go on a tour. Who's available? And there are a lot of groups. So I would just take your Facebook and LinkedIn and all the rest of them and just find every possible group that makes any sense for you to belong to and stay in touch with all those people and say, hey, if anybody's coming to Salt Lake City next week, look me up.
Great.
So, Drew, do you have a hard time meeting people?
I don't. It's just because I'm in Salt Lake City, I have some pretty consistent opportunities throughout the year, but I would like to eventually, go outside of the state and travel around the country. So I just would love to know how to expand outside of the state and meet people outside of my local area.
Well, it seems to me if I were talking to someone who was younger than you and just starting out, I would say you need to get in your car and you need to go up to Utah Festival Opera, or you need to go to Utah Opera, or you need to go to the Utah Symphony probably produces stuff. You need to take a look at the theaters in Utah and be there. Be there at opening night. Go see their shows. Introduce yourself to the production manager. Introduce yourself to the technical director. Introduce yourself to the artistic director. But I think it's being social. And you start by being social in your neighborhood, and then you expand that out. You expand it out two different ways. Perhaps you're doing something at that opera company, and that director normally has a home base in Chicago. All of a sudden, you've met someone who can introduce you to people in Chicago also. So I think it is being social at the theater companies and the opera companies you're at already or want to be at, and taking advantage of all those people there. I think once they see you, if you've never worked at the XYZ theater company, I think after they see you coming to see their show and you have some interest in them, if I were the director of the theater company, I would be interested in you. There's nothing worse than getting, I think, one resume a year from someone and you never hear from them again. I think they already have 100 resumes on their desk. But I think if that one person buys a season ticket or comes to opening night or makes an effort to get to know them, they'll want to get to know you also, and then your work will speak for itself.
Or start hanging out at technical rehearsals. Of course, you got permission to go, but if you say, hey, I'm a lighting designer and I'm really interested, is there any way I can, help you in any way? And then all of a sudden, you're sort of like a fixture. you're the cat who's sitting in the back watching all the time. And then when something happens, oh my God, I really need to see what this light looks like, you get up and you say, hey, would you like me to stand there? Sure. And then all of a sudden, you're part of the production. These things are really important because people are attracted to people who want to help them. Okay. Maybe it's a selfish thing. I don't know. But that's the truth. It's a communal type of business.
Our good friend Steve Shelley always says, Hank, find out what the local watering hole is.
Always, yeah.
what is the bar? If you're in New York or Chicago or LA, what is the bar that those designers, those cinematography, those film people, those exhibition people, those concert people go to and hang out and start to meet people?
I also think self-promotion is a good idea, not shamelessly, but there are certain designers who get covered a lot on Live Design because they send us, either press releases or fabulous photographs or keep us posted with what they're doing. And we're not the only media outlet. So, if every time you do a show in Salt Lake City, you send us the info, we could maybe cover it. Okay. And other people could cover it as well. And post on Facebook, post on LinkedIn, post on USITT groups. Go to USITT, start the regional chapter, belong to the regional chapter. I think what Steve has said is right. Just be out there, be social, and just, be visible.
Since Ellen said it, used this word, she said self-promotion. I have to confess that I've very recently been accused of being a self-promoter. And so, I self-promote. I would rather call it marketing to a point, because that is being social. That's getting out who you are, what you're doing.
So you're self-promoting again. Right now, you're self-promoting again. Right here, you're self-promoting,
That's right.
Stan.
I'm doing it right here on the show live for the entire globe. And I'll take whatever attention I can get. So yeah, first of all, Drew, have a website, because that's part of your social. And then get that out as broadly as Ellen said before. I love what Ellen said about, when I was in New York, it was like, come downtown and hang out with the designers, get yourself in the door. It's absolutely true. Social media, we didn't have that back then. How do I find out when the tech is? In 1980, that was hard. Now that's a little bit simpler, because communication is more fluid. But back to the self-promotion part. So my website tells me when somebody's on it. I get a notification. And yesterday, there's somebody from Wyoming. I don't know anybody in Wyoming.
Liz Cheney.
Yes, I'm all for Liz Cheney. But I never knew. I don't know anybody I don't even think I've ever driven through Wyoming. I used to live in Nebraska. Okay, so I'm like, this is interesting. Twice. So that was the day before yesterday. And yesterday, the phone rings. Now, and I'll get an email thing from a guy, guess where? Wyoming. Okay? It's a project at the University of Wyoming at Laramie. I'm like, wow. And so I call the guy back right away. I don't wait. I don't wait a day. I don't wait a minute. I pick up the phone, call the guy. We have this conversation about the project. And then I'm kind of scratching my head. How is it that this guy's calling me in Florida? Because I said, why are you calling me? I'm in Florida. Don't you have people in Wyoming who do this kind of work? He's like, yeah, but you came recommended. And I said, oh, really? Well, who recommended me? And it just so happens it's a former student from 15 years ago who is now teaching at the University of Wyoming, and they're redoing the lighting system in his theater, and they've got a bunch of money. And he said, hire Stan. Now, that's crazy, but the point is, that guy is a Facebook friend. That guy sees my self-promotion, and that guy remembers me. So the point I'm making is that your life is a network. The question is, do you maintain it? Do you fertilize it? Do you keep it active? I used to tell my students, you know how I know you'll be successful? Because someday you're going to pick up the phone and hire me.
And then they're going to fire you just to get back at you.
Well, they're going to give me shit about being a self-promoter.
There you go. So, Drew, get out there, buy some people drinks.
I can do that. That's awesome.
And good luck, and keep in touch with us, all right?
Absolutely.
Bribery can't hurt.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, great.
We all expect to see you at LDI.
I will be there.
That's
I'll
right.
be there.
Yes. We'll be on the floor at the LDI podcast booth,
Also known as the Light Talk Lounge.
Or the Circle Bar. Let's go to the Circle Bar.
The Circle Bar.
Yeah,
Right.
so the Circle Bar, definitely. All right. So thanks a lot, Drew.
Thank you.
So hello and welcome to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Paula from the Northwoods of Wisconsin.
Northwoods. What's the difference between the Northwoods and the Southwoods?
It's colder, wetter, more lakes.
Ooh, that's nice.
What's on your mind, Paula? Tell us what's cooking.
Well, mentoring is on my mind. I work with a mentoring program, and the students ask frequently, how did you get your start? What was not just like, what sparked you? Where was you finding the light? What is it that grabbed your idea that you wanted to do this for a living?
I had to have money when I went to college, and so I had to work study, and my work study was in the scene shop. And I wasn't a theater major, but after a couple years, I just kept meeting these people who were really interesting and nice, and invited me into their tribe. And it was just a slow, connective path to get me to lighting. But it was absolutely the people and being part of the tribe.
Yeah, I'm similar to Steve in a way, but almost in a darker way. I didn't want to go home. So the theater became a second home. And then from that, all the people that I felt accepted by all the people in it. But my spark was for being in design was family taking me to Broadway and sitting in the second row for Fiddler on the Roof or Hair or these amazing shows and looking up and going, that stuff with the colored light coming out of it is making all this magic. And I said, I think I want to be a part of that someday. But really, it was a place to be. And then because I was sort of like the last question, because I was there, I was in that space. Certain people gravitated to me, and I gravitated to them, and they took me under their wing. And I was so hungry for that support and somebody who cared about what I was doing, and then they turned into mentors. So your mentors are not far away. I think if you're in the space, if you're on the street, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think that the mentoring programs, there should be more of them in our industry. And I think that it leads back a little to Drew's question about networking. Certainly if you're part of a mentorship program, you're going to meet your mentor, and you're going to meet maybe the other people who are in that program that year, and they could become lifelong colleagues. So I think that's a very interesting, those programs are interesting. Can I turn the tables and ask Paula a little question of what mentoring entails in the lighting industry?
Sure. The program I work with is with a manufacturer sponsor. So that would be ETC in this case. And we have seminars online. We have designer roundtables online. Everything changed with the pandemic. So instead of sending the students to LDI every year, like 3 or 4 or 5 of them, now we have 10 that we can help. And we invite professional lighting designers, networking, because people at ETC know all these lighting designers. And I've met a bunch of them the same way. And I can draw people in from the theme park world and educational world where I started. And so, and eventually, after we do all these seminars and things online, we bring a student together with a mentor or 2 sometimes, and that they commit for a year-long dialogue and a year-long of interaction where the mentor looks at their website, looks at their portfolio, looks at their resume, helps them, and invites them like to come into New York. For example, Herrick Goldman, he's always happy to have somebody come and sit in with him on tech rehearsals. And so it's a commitment from both ways, student and mentor.
We've talked about this quite a bit, that most professional designers would welcome people to come and shadow or even become a third assistant. But I think students and young professionals are too shy. They need to be aggressive and be able to find people who's coming into town and just write them an email or find them on Facebook and send them a message and say, hey, I'm like a first-year lighting student at the University of Wisconsin, and I see you're coming to town. Would you mind if I just watched you work? And 99% of the time, that designer will say, absolutely. Now, things have changed a little because of COVID, that they're trying to keep the number of people in theaters down. But under normal circumstances, that's usually welcome. And the one thing I was going to say earlier was that as crazy as theater is, some people are afraid of coming in and walking into a community like that. But the beauty is that once you're in that community, you are cherished. You're now part of the family. So that's why usually a lot of misfits find their way into theater. And I think I was one of those misfits, to tell you the truth, because I wanted to be a composer, but I couldn't get a scholarship. So I just figured I can compose in the theater, and it was fantastic. And that was, like Stan said, a second family for me. So once people find that, it's hard to leave it. It really is. Hell, that's why I did Central City for 25 years or something like that, because I didn't want to leave the people that I love there, that I grew up with. But that's a great program, Paula. Do you want to tell us or tell our listeners a little bit about it if they want to apply for it? Do you have any information you can give them?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to the ETC website, and there's a whole lot of information there about the program. And it's for seniors students who are going into their senior year and students who are in grad school.
How far is it from Salt Lake City to the North Woods of Wisconsin?
A long ways.
I don't think Drew's a senior.
Well, no, but dinner with Paul is worth a drive.
Oh yeah, that's true. Even from Southern California.
Yeah.
So, Paula, if I come up there and visit you, what is your preferred cheese curd?
My cheese curds, jalapeno cheese curds.
Okay.
You like jalapenos.
Sounds good to me.
Oh yeah. There's a Mennonite farm over here that has a store, and they have the most incredible cheeses, among other things. Yeah.
Well, Paula, thanks for being on the show, and good luck with the mentorship program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, hello, and welcome to Light Talk.
Well, thank you, Lumen Brothers and
I
sister.
know who this is.
Hey,
I
I know this
recognize
is-
that voice.
Oh, I recognize
my
that
God.
Dennis.
Hey, this is Dennis from the lovely North Shore of Long Island.
Yeah,
Not quite the Belmont, but Port Washington. I want to
Nice.
congratulate all you folks. This is a wonderful departure, and it's great that you're able to reinvent yourself after 5.5 years to try something new. I mean, I had a great question that I have so many questions I could ask you guys.
Yeah, you once said that you yell at your stereo when you listen to our show. What the hell are you talking about?
I do. I don't have a life to the point that I actually go back and listen to old shows of yours. It's just, oh my God. The interview show with Bev Emmons was so wonderful the other day. And it caused me to go back and listen to some older interviews. And I went back and listened to the Don Holder interview, which was wonderful. Anyway, I digress. I was thinking a great question that I really want to know is whether I should use an Olivet instead of a Lico. But I figured, why go into that? No, I'm really, I had a couple of questions, but where this is going really interests me. And the question about networking that Drew had and PJ's discussion of mentoring, it really just turned me right around, because after all the years of doing this, and primarily my bread and butter, as you know, comes out of the broadcast industry. But for years and decades, I've tried to encourage people and grow people and mentor people. I remember the first week I started way too many years ago, and I was sent to observe and to work with and to assist a senior designer in television who had many awards on a soap opera. And I walked in and I said, "Good morning, Mr. So-and-so. My name is Dennis Size, and I'm here to help you however I can and to learn from you." And this gentleman, a big, burly, barrel-chested sort of guy, took the cigar out of his mouth, blew smoke in my face, and said, "Find a closet somewhere, get into it, and stay out of my way." And I thought, wow, welcome to TV.
That's the difference.
And then several years later, I remember when I won my first Emmy Award, and I came back to the show. I was on this show for a couple of years, and it was like Emmys are a Saturday or a Friday. Came back from LA, and at the end of that following week, I was fired from the show. And along with the scene designer and the executive producer, who was brand new, said, "The whole problem with this show is the look of the show. The scenery is terrible. The lighting is terrible. And we're going to make a complete change." Now, that's what producers do. They're hired to make changes. And the easiest change to make is to get rid of the scenery and the lighting and the costumes right away. It takes forever to change the script and the characters. But I thought, holy shit, I just won an award. The scene designer won an award. And how can he say it's the worst lighting and the worst scenery on television?
What is the question?
Here's the question.
Well, clearly, you should have never come out.
That's right.
Oh my God.
No.
Dennis is not out of the closet yet. So
Please put a rim shot. Please put a rim shot in there. No, what I'm seeing happen now, I'm seeing it more than I know how to solve. And as educators, I'm asking you guys this question. younger people that we hire and work with have a very difficult time adjusting to that kind of negative criticism, and I'm serious. And I've had younger people out of school.
So wait, you're saying we need to give these youngsters more negative criticism when they're in school?
We'll be fired if we do that.
To get
you
them ready
can't
for
say
you.
anything negative anymore.
Well,
I know,
anymore,
it's
and that's
against the law.
You know, when I was going for my MFA, I interviewed at NYU, and I'm not going to say who was the chairman at the time, but after I presented my model and I was going into scenery at the time and my renderings and all this, he very plainly came right out and said, "It's unfortunate that you are totally unskilled, have no abilities and no talent, and there's no way that we would ever accept you into NYU."
That's a private school. We can't do that. Maybe Steve can do that.
You can't do that anywhere.
I just want to say we give them, they do get portfolio reviews and they get constructive criticism. But you're talking about a cultural dynamic, Dennis, that you're saying.
It's a dynamic that's certainly changed. I mean, I went from there to Yale and I sat down in a room with Ming, who all of a sudden brought out models of his and said, "Let me show you what as a matter of fact, I had done a production of Oedipus and I was traveling around with the model. He said, Here's the model for Oedipus Rex that I did." And we had a discussion about the show. And I thought, wow, this is so totally different than what I went through at NYU. And similarly at other schools. But the point of fact is, I've had young designers in the last year or so actually break down crying from what they perceive as negative criticism. And I know that the times have changed and we have to worry about toxicity and all that. But the question is, how can we train our younger designers to leave their ego at the door? They need to grow thicker bark on their trunks to accept what's coming at them. And I used to teach years ago, and I certainly admire the fact that you guys are still doing this. But how, as teachers, as educators?
Okay, so I'm just
how do you do it?
I'm just going to crystallize the question for all of us. How do we teach young people to leave their ego at the door? It's a good question. Go.
I don't think it's ego. I think it is just the evolution of education. And I think it starts in kindergarten. And it is a way to give positive reinforcement. And you keep giving that positive reinforcement through their entire life. I mean, the problem is, that's not really a problem. They've never heard a negative comment. They have always heard, "You are special, you are good, your work is worthy." I remember vividly, similar to Dennis, I remember the lighting designer sitting behind me when I was in college, whispering, "This is the worst work I have ever seen. This is an embarrassment." Now, by the same token, that designer would defend me with the other faculty, but he was harsh. And for me, I guess I learned a couple things. I learned that this is not an industry for the thin-skinned people, and it's certainly not an industry for thin-skinned when you're working in vast sums of money. And it's very different when you're working on those scales as opposed down to the community theater, where people are there because they like each other, love each other, and love the work. Once you kind of move into that rarefied air of expensive shows, I remember vividly as an adult on a rock and roll tour, the agent walking up to me and giving me a business card. And on the back of it was a dollar sign with a dollar sign. And he said, "Don't forget to light the talent." They're not here to see a silhouette. They're not here to see fog. Light the talent. And he wasn't being mean. He was just being, "You got a job to do. You need to do it. Don't let something else distract you." Harsh world. It is hard.
I have something to contribute that's maybe a little heady for this subject, but if you're talking about positive reinforcement, which Steve is bringing up, and the notion of negative, or they're perceiving feedback or criticism as negative. So this has been studied in statistics, the notion that negative reinforcement will or harsh criticism will yield a better result is from another era. Statistics have not borne that out to be true. So maybe education was onto something in terms of getting a better performance or improving performance of anyone in any field. And you can read more deeply about regression to the mean, which proves this principle out.
It's not about negative reinforcement. You don't have to have negative reinforcement. The question, I think, is if you say anything that is perceived, you don't have to be a mean person. You don't have to make them cry, but you walk up and you say, I think that blue is not working. And all of a sudden there is this kind of trauma that happens. What do you mean? What do you mean? Right. It's my choice. It's my opinion. It can't be wrong.
Well, that maybe is ego.
I don't know if it's ego. I think it's innocence.
Back when we were doing this a long time ago, our mentors were not that subtle. This is the sort of subtlety that we have learned to do over the years, which is maybe a good thing, but it's still offensive to some people. People do take offense.
But too much positive reinforcement lower the bar. That everybody gets an award syndrome.
Times have changed, and I'm not saying it's for the best or for the worst. I'm just saying is that a big part of teaching and being a mentor or being a boss or being a director is learning how to comment and criticize with your colleagues. And this happens all the time with the directors I work with, because they're friends of mine, but they may not agree with what I'm doing. But we have a way of communicating that nothing is taken personally, ever. So I think that's an art that we all have to learn how to do, especially as teachers.
It becomes very difficult, though, with younger people. And, I just did a project. One of my younger assistants was with me, and we worked a very long couple of days, and we created a wonderful look for this TV show. And the producer came in, looked at it, and everybody was saying, wow, this is great. This really looks special. It has a nice quality to it. And the executive producer said, hey, is this what it's supposed to look like? and I said,
we've heard that before.
No, it's not. We just came in for several days and worked for 30 or 40 hours to make it look this shitty. And my assistant later on said, I can't believe you said that. I said, well, at this point in my career, I don't really give a shit.
You can keep no one's firing you. But, it's like, when are you going to turn off the work lights? When are the work lights going? Let them get out.
That's
for
right.
Situational awareness comes to mind.
Well, that does bring the point up, though, that is kind of the gorilla in the room. We work for the producer, or you might say, I work for the director. But at some point, someone does come in and says, no, I need a special on the sofa. I remember Edward Albee coming in and saying, I love everything I see, but it's completely wrong for my show. And, people were stunned that he was saying he loved everything he saw.
Yeah, for another show.
Then there was the payoff. Yeah. For another show, it'd be great, but not for my show.
It's interesting. I had an assistant with me to do a cleanup on a major United States news show, a broadcast that you would know very well. It's top #1 in the country. And the assistant said, there's no backlight on the anchor man, and you don't have any side light either. And I said, that's correct. And he said, why not? I said, because the anchor doesn't want it. The anchor hates his hair lit. And then my assistant said, but that's not really great lighting. I said, I agree with you. This is probably the worst lit show on television. And people have said to me, have you ever looked at the such and such show and how bad the lighting is? And I've said, yes, I lit it and it is terrible. But you know what? The 600-pound gorilla in the room is the one you need to answer for. And I can very honestly say that lighting is crap because it's not my ego that's involved. But that particular anchor will insist that I be on every special and every project and everything that he's done around the world. So, we have to cater to the people. But at the same time, producers pay a lot of money to get the advice that you bring to the table with the years of experience you have. And I have no problem saying, this is what it's got to be. And if a producer says, well, I hate that idea, then I can say, great, we'll go your idea, but you're paying me for my opinion. And again, after all these
I'll
years,
give you my opinion anyway.
I don't have the ego, but I see the younger people and they really get very upset. And I'm trying to figure out ways to get them to accept the way our work gets looked at. Because let's face it, it's all very quantitative and artistic. What we do, you cannot touch. It's an ephemeral art.
I feel you need to be defended for a second here. Yes, it may be the worst lighting in television, but you're allowing that talent to do the best possible job he or she can do because he or she is comfortable.
Bingo. I think you nailed it. And I think that's what needs to be imparted to students.
Yeah. And it also comes down to maturity. It really does. I mean, the longer you live, the more you realize, it really isn't that important that this person said that. I'm just going to do this and try to please that person and please myself at the same time. It's a much more mature way of looking at it. And it has to do with age, I'm afraid, and experience.
Well, I think in defense of the student, we do not ask the scenic designer or the costume designer to walk into the theater and be publicly exposed as they create their world.
Good point, Steve. Definitely.
Good point. Yeah.
And the lighting designer is always the last one in and the guy who's expected to save the day.
Yep, that's right.
Or a gal. Usually the women do a much better job than we do, so they're the ones saving the day. So anyway, listen, we could talk about this all day long, and we're going to have you back as a guest, all right, Dennis? I mean, we kind of promised that the last time. Well, hello, and welcome to Light Talk.
Hey, everybody. It's Jay calling from beautiful, almost stormy Baltimore, Maryland.
Ooh, Baltimore,
Hey, Jay.
where they have the crabs. Didn't we talk about crabs once before?
Good crabs.
I'll tell you what, if you come to Baltimore, the crabs are on me.
All right, we're there. We'll be there this weekend.
You always
Are you coming to Vegas? Are you coming to LDI?
Actually, you know what? I'm tired of my university scheduling tech on the same weekend.
Oh,
They do tend to do that, don't they?
blasphemy.
And I argued, but I did not win. So
You should have Ellen send you a note.
That's right. Ellen could send you a note. Ellen, can you do that?
Send me a note.
Yes, absolutely. Please change that tech immediately. Absolutely. No tech weekend.
I do hope to send a couple of students and I'll have them look for you. So that's what I'll be doing. So speaking of education, I'll probably retire within 3 to 4 years is my goal. And so close to a 40-year career in this business.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, it's been fun. And the line that I hear so often, and I hope you all take this with some fun in your answers. The line I hear so often is, if there's anything else you could do with your life, go do that. And I'm going to tell you, I've never said that to a student in my life. And every time I do, it bothers me because I don't know if I would want to hear that when I'm pursuing something that I believe in, I'm going to love and I want to do with my life. So here's my question to you, to the hosts of this podcast. What is it that you would have been doing if you took that advice?
Wow, that's personal.
I was going to say that's a funny line because I always thought people, that was like more of a warning, not a, you're not going to be good at this, but there's like no
Right,
money here.
right.
So,
That's how I was taking.
you should really be doing something else with your life because you're going to starve to death trying to do this.
Yeah, eventually you may give it up. Yeah, or have to.
But are you asking what choices we would have made differently, chosen a different profession if we had? If is that the question?
Well, Steve mentioned before, he kind of hinted at what he was doing in college before he discovered it. Would that be an alternate career?
Sure, I'd be a millionaire.
That's a good answer.
No, I was studying literature. I thought literature was it. And then, I considered for the longest time going to law school. So, I had other interests. But I think literature kept bringing me back because I just love to read.
Yeah. So for me, I had a lot of interest. But I think ultimately the theater thing was, it was sort of like church. It was the community of a church, of a group of people, almost like the military. Like, I've never served in the military, but I think it's kind of similar. There's a mission that everybody works together as a team to get done. And for me, it had both a technical achievement and an artistic result that touched the soul. And that was it was sort of a religious experience in a way. And it had a commercial aspect to it as well. But I think if I had not ended up there, I would have been a fine artist of some kind, or I would have been somebody who maybe managed fine art for others and was a broker somehow, like an art broker or a banker or something in the financial fields as well. But that's how it landed for me.
Stan, just remember that you are my oldest friend in the world. And I saw many of those walls that you painted with painstakingly measuring masking tape and making lines from the 1970s.
Yeah. Some form of expression was always important to me, but I was also needed to make a buck somehow too. I did everything from change oil and drive trucks. I mean, did so many different things because I, was trying to find it. And I think theater just let me not go home. Like I said, it let me escape, but it also drew me in. The spiritualness of it, that all human beings found their sense of their selves and their souls in the theater, that was sort of really beautiful. So I loved beauty, but I also had a very practical streak as well. So,
a very famous man named Joseph Campbell once said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the quote, there's a difference between doing something because you do it well and doing something because you love it. And a lot of people get trapped into doing something because you do it well because it pays more money and not choosing the path where he calls finding your bliss because it's not going to pay as well. And they end up leading very empty lives by doing that and regretting it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right there. But I think you're right. And I love that line about, the theater being like a tribe and church and a sense of home. And I think we all found that. High school was difficult waters for a lot of us. And I think the theater was a refuge. And I also started out in literature. And since no one was going to pay me to write the next great American novel, I figured out I could make a living writing press releases and news stories. And the LDI stuff came later. But I also think, most people in the theater don't live a 9-to-5 life. I would never know what to do with that sort of a schedule.
Can I throw one last thing in there? Because when I really think about it, I probably I ended up being what I didn't think I was going to be, which is a rabbi. And the actual translation of rabbi is teacher. And so I actually think I did find my calling.
It's a great question. It really is. And I think that we think about that a lot, or maybe we don't. Maybe we're delusional because, we're successful in one area of our lives and we don't want to think back of what if I made that left turn instead of that right turn? I don't know. No regrets. That's all I could say. Jay, so you are finishing your career, which is wonderful. And have you found an alternate thing to do once you retire?
I'm building worlds in virtual reality. That's what's keeping me busy.
Very cool.
And absolutely loving, entering the whole world of virtual reality and community, and actually developing what I could bring, knowing what I know about theater, into that new adventure that I think is only growing and growing.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I agree with. I think that is really what's happening now. That's the new technology. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. But virtual reality is it. All the games are there. Everything's happening there. So, but anyway, good luck, Jay, and congratulations on all those amazing years that you've taught students. It was great.
I've still got a few more. I wish I could go tomorrow, to be honest, but I still have a few more to go.
Yeah, I know.
Mazel tov.
We're all, Stan and me and Steve, we're all like pretty much at the same place. Although I think Steve's going to outlast us all. I really do. He's been very quiet about
I've got my 401 has to come back. I've got to get past this.
Me too.
Got it.
Understand that. Yep.
All right, great. Well, thanks a lot, Jay. So, hello and welcome to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Doug from Cambridge, Massachusetts, our fair city.
Hey, Doug from New England.
Cambridge, Mass.
Smart people up there.
I like to think so. And by the way, I live about 2 blocks from the Car Talk garage, and I have actually brought my car there.
And what is that pilgrimage like when you go there?
It's not much of a pilgrimage, actually. It's just a couple of blocks down the road, and I bring my dog there all the time. We just go on by, and actually, they're quite nice, and they're really the 2 guys. Well, one of them has passed away, but the remaining one,
well, Tom has passed.
But
Ray's still there.
Is there occasionally, but isn't there most of the time. But the folks who run the garage are remarkably sweet and wonderfully honest, meaning they're not the type of people that tell you should change your brakes when you shouldn't change your brakes and stuff like that.
Not like us.
I must tell you something. I must tell you a quick story, because last night I was driving home and I was listening to an old episode of Car Talk, and there was a great question. Someone asked them, Tom and Ray, they said, what would you rather have, a dishonest mechanic who's competent or an honest mechanic who's a total idiot? And you know what both Tom and Ray said? The honest mechanic who's a total idiot. Because they would hope that he'd have a chance of getting it right, where if the guy's dishonest, then it doesn't matter if he knows what he's doing, because he's going to sell you on something that your car doesn't need. So there you go. So that's really cool. So what's your question, Doug?
My question is, well, first of all, I want to give you a little context. I teach theatrical design at a high school in the Boston area, I'm the technical director and those things. And I'm looking to get some moving headlights for the school, for what's about a 400-seat auditorium. And they have some that are wash lights, but I'm looking to get something that's going to be more focusable and throw a distance and create some effects. And what I'm looking at seem to make a choice between LED lights that have a big color range but are not terrifically bright versus discharge lights that have much limited color variety but are much, much brighter.
Yeah. So you're trying to decide between power or versatility.
Correct.
Basically.
Yes.
And how long is your throw? What size theater do you have?
Well, it's 400 seats, but depending on where I put them, it can be a throw that's 15 or 20 feet. I mean, I could put them all the way at the back, which would probably be close to 40. Or I could put them up close. I can put them in a variety of places.
Okay. Well, that actually helps a great deal.
I mean, maybe what you're pushing towards saying is, get ones for further back that are the more powerful ones, and get ones for close up that are not.
I think investing in discharge lamps is a big mistake right now.
Really? Okay.
Even though they are more powerful, it's old technology. And I think that you could probably find something in the LED world that's powerful enough.
Well, without dragging anybody through the mud, both lights, are they from what you feel to be a quality manufacturer?
Yes.
Okay. And are those lights service available in your area?
Yes.
Then I mean, for me, I would lean toward the LED. And the reason is that things don't have to be brighter. Maybe the rest of your rig needs to be running at 90% as opposed to full, so those LEDs can really do what they're supposed to do. Maybe you dim it back a little bit and let them work. Are both of them in the same budget price range?
Yes.
Well, then it's just, get it in the theater and just decide how you want to work with them. But I agree with David. I think I would lean, particularly in high school, I just think being able for students to work with a wide color palette is probably more interesting to them than having, a super bright light on stage. And also it allows them to be a little bit more thoughtful in how they're using the light as opposed just to blasting the thing in. I think, given quality, given budget, given service, I would lean toward the LED myself. And I agree. I would go with a profile. I would not buy a wash.
Is that what they're going to find when they get out in the world more?
If I have anything to do with it, Yes. And I would agree with what David and Steve have said. And I would just add that, Doug, the brightness is a relative thing. We've talked about that on the show a lot. David's talked about it plenty. So Steve, I think Steve's point about adjusting the overall range of brightness is important. You're not in that big a space. The fixtures, most of them, whether they're discharge or LED, are going to have a pretty decent zoom range now. So when you need the light to be brighter from a further distance, make it tighter. And when you need it to be a wider, you bring it closer, right? And not lose the brightness. So those things are a sliding scale, right? When you put them up, are they going to be permanently mounted, or can they change position for
No, we can move them.
Yeah, then I think you get something between a 15 degree or a 12 degree to a 55 degree fixture in an LED, a decent LED from a good manufacturer. We're not going to go into talking about who or what. I think that's a better decision long term, and for all the reasons that have already been mentioned. I think the lumens are in alignment here on this question.
I think the other thing to consider, if you haven't done it already, is which one of the lights produces the least amount of noise, fan noise.
Right.
So if you got that fan noise out in the auditorium, that's pretty distracting. But if one of them is more quiet or has multiple fan profiles, that can work to your advantage, I think.
Yeah, and it's a very live space from an audio point of view. So I think that's a very, very important point.
Yeah, you can't have noise. You can't have a lot of noise.
The silence is important.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks, Doug, and good luck, man. If you need,
let us know what you choose, Doug.
Yeah, let us know what you choose, and if you want to call Stan, he'll give you his phone number and he'll tell you what to buy.
No charge.
No charge. Well, great, and we have our final listener today. Hello, and welcome to Light Talk.
Hello, this is Campbell, and I'm calling from Portland, Oregon.
Portland, great.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show, Campbell.
Is it cooled off up there?
Absolutely not. It is burning.
It is.
It's cooler here in Florida than it is in Portland.
Have you started working on your Christmas spectacular yet?
No, not yet. I have not.
Okay, I just want to be on that list when you send that YouTube video
yes,
out.
We'll post it on the Light Talk Facebook page. I think that's beautiful. Campbell, by the way, we all know Campbell. We've known him for years. And he's probably, and I hate to embarrass you, Campbell, but our youngest listener and probably more advanced than most of us. You could probably teach more about automated lighting than Stan, Steve, and me combined.
Which brings us to the question. What is your question today?
So my question is that I'm kind of having issue with our rep plot at school, where we have about, 15 lights that I'm able to allocate to front light. And they're currently just straight on towards the stage. They aren't as angled or anything. And I'm thinking about trying to angle them. And I'm wondering if that is a bad idea if I'm not able to do them in pairs.
Good question. I love specific questions like that.
This is all front light, Campbell.
Yes.
Interesting. That's the whole. Is that the whole rep plot or just the front lights?
No. It's only the front light.
Okay.
I could allocate a couple more. I mean, I could allocate a couple more, but yeah, that is basically.
Are these LED lights or are they just regular conventional lights? Okay. So then you have to consider color. Okay.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we've talked about a lot on the show, especially with front light, is that you want to have a little bit of variety of color depending on what costumes are showing up on stage from scene to scene. You've heard me talk about red palettes and green palettes a lot. One of the things that I do is I do them in pairs. I usually come straight in and I have two colors. And so that I'm able to mix those two colors additively to create the color I want to hit the skin tones and the costumes. And that's the only reason why I use front light, to tell you the truth. So coming in on an angle really means nothing to me, because usually I have box booms that are doing angled washes from the side, from the front and the side. So I just come straight in normally. And again, I have those two colors, so I can mix the color.
Well, I think if you've never done it, there's nothing wrong with experimentation. It sounds like you've gone to the county library and you're on page 62 of Stanley McCandless's A Method of Lighting the Stage. I think the only thing you got to consider, or one of the things that I would consider at least, is the fall off of the light and how, if you are using the front light to control the stage. So if you're trying to light someone just at center, do you want that angle falling over on quarter line also? Or how are you controlling all this? So I do think you have to think about fall off and the results of coming at an angle. Yeah, I mean, you have to think about the results coming straight in also. You know, how far does the light fall upstage? You know, so these are all considerations, but you can't go wrong.
Okay.
Hang a light and turn it on, look at it. And if you don't like it, just say, well, not for this show, but you keep that filed away in the back of your head, and someday you go, you know, I angled a light once, and it was good. It was good. You know,
yeah,
it's
use
nothing
that
to
again.
worry about.
Yeah, I usually get the sculpture from a different position, like a box spoon position. I try it because I don't want, for me, this is my own little pet peeve, I don't want to blast light onto legs on this, as I find it distracting. So the front light straight in, that's really all I'm looking for. When I want to sculpt, I'm not doing it from that straight in angle. I'm doing it from another angle, from another part of the rep plot. It's just my own taste.
Yeah, I think the issue that I have is that other people just want to like turn on a light and then that's just like that square on stage. And they just like want to have light there. But I just don't like that much because it just looks flat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to hang things in other places too, but it's again that we don't have that many instruments. Like I think total we have like 36. So I have to spread that across all different things. So I think it's just kind of like a balance of just trying to decide about what's the most important to have.
I'll have to send you a package of lights.
Oh, you're giving away lights?
What do you need? Like 24, 36, you know, I just need to send them, a gift.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we need to call Brackley up and have him send that, warehouse full
Panties?
of panty projectors he's been
That's
trying
right.
to get rid of
You
for
need a
years.
couple of ponies. There you go.
There's something you said, Campbell, that now I'm thinking, now you said you have like 36 lights. Why do you need front light? Maybe you just do angled lights. You just do your, whatever your key lighting angle is, and then use maybe one light coming from the opposite direction that's maybe a 36 degree that you're not going to have it full because you don't want it full anyway. And you have a nice tint in it just to fill in the shadows. But you have now a dynamic lighting and suddenly you're Joseph Svoboda. You're no longer Campbell, you're Joseph Svoboda, and people are going to discover you, and they're going to make you a star. They're going to put you on Broadway. You're going to be doing operas all the time. It's amazing, because I'm just against this whole Stanley McCandless method of lighting. There is no method of lighting.
Well,
that was a method.
In defense of Campbell, he never said that.
No. I agree, but I'm thinking instead of saying, well, there has to be front light, no, there doesn't have to be front light. No.
You can just do all kinds of good side light.
Yeah, or put a light on the deck and have it pointing up.
Well, I will try to convince.
And the executive producer will walk in and say, this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, don't worry about that executive producer.
He's evoking Dennis's wisdom there. Right?
I will have a go.
Exactly. We're pulling out from Dennis. That's the thing, though, man. Just have fun, because something Steve said, experiment. But there is no method. I mean, I told you this thing that I do from the front. That's because I have 800 lights and I can do that. And if I need to have like some fill, I have it there. But boy, if I had 36 lights, and I've done shows with 36 lights, I wouldn't waste 10 of them in the front. I'll tell you that right now. So have fun with it.
Thank you, David.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And go to one of these guys' graduate programs, okay? Because you go to a good graduate
well, first
program.
Call PJ up and go to ETC.
The hell at school. Go to ETC.
He knows people all over the country. He's going to be in the ETC, mentorship program. He's going to be.
Yeah. He's
figured out networking. He's got networking figured out.
I'm going to bring Campbell to California. That's the bottom line. I'm sorry, guys, but he's coming to California.
Okay.
I'm kidnapping him.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Campbell, for being in. Good luck.
Yes.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Well, that went pretty well, didn't you think?
We'll find out when you could put it in the can.
Absolutely. It was great.
I mean, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again, you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, Amazon Prime Music, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk Insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
just so you know, every one of these guests is protected by the law firm of Flecht, Flock, Flair, and Glare and their cute little paralegal snoot, who will defend all of us, including the guests, until their retirement funds or their college education funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Hurricane Alley, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And if you want to have the opportunity to be on Light Talk and ask us questions personally, just like our guest did today, then email Stan K, that's Kaye at iCloud.com. We tape every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor all around the world.
So we want to thank Campbell, Jay, Dennis, Doug, PJ, and Drew for being on our show today, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
So long, everyone.
Toodles.